Hello. In this story, you'll uncover a hidden vulnerability in the heart of urban resistance. Noor Patel anchors her community against displacement. Yet months of secrecy surround her early-stage illness. One revelation, and trust crumbles. Let's begin. The dim light of Noor's cramped living room filtered through half-drawn blinds, casting elongated shadows across the worn coffee table. Maya Ellis adjusted the microphone on her recorder, its red light blinking steadily like a heartbeat. The air hummed with the faint buzz of city traffic outside. But inside, it was just the two of them. Two women bound by unspoken weights. Noor Patel leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, fingers twisting a frayed scarf. "The community center's been our lifeline," she began, her voice steady at first, recounting the funding cuts, the families teetering on eviction. Maya's notebook filled with notes. Solidarity rallies, whispered fears of displacement. Maya's throat tightened. The recorder captured it all, that unspooling vulnerability, a digital echo she couldn't unmake. Her mind raced. Expose this, and the piece gains depth, humanizes the fight. But Noor's plea echoed louder. Protect it for now. The weight of absolute truth pressed in, threatening to crack her resolve. What if this secret was the key to something bigger, a thread leading to the corruption she'd been chasing? Silence felt like betrayal, yet speaking it could shatter Noor. "I promise," Maya said finally, her voice firmer than she felt. She reached over, thumb hovering over the stop button, but let it run a moment longer, sealing the words in permanence. "This stays between us, off the record until, or if, you're ready." The promise landed like a vow, binding them in shared shadow. Noor's shoulders eased, a tentative trust blooming in her nod, their bond tightening around this fragile core. But as Maya packed her bag, the recorder slipped into her pocket like a talisman. Its recorded whispers a forbidden note in her investigation. Elias had texted earlier. "Dinner? You've been distant." She hadn't replied, the growing chasm between them a mirror to her own compartmentalizing. Could she honor this without knowing the fallout? The question lingered, unanswered, as she stepped into the flickering street lamp's glow outside, the night swallowing her doubts into resolve. Later that evening, the street lamp buzzed like a hesitant heartbeat, its light stuttering across the cracked sidewalk of Elmwood Avenue. Maya Ellis clutched her notebook, the evening chills seeping through her coat as she approached the cluster of residents huddled outside the corner bodega. Dusk painted the neighborhood in bruised purples, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked asphalt and distant curry from open windows. She needed voices, raw, unfiltered ones, to layer onto her story, to expose the rot festering beneath the community's tight-knit facade. But Noor's words echoed in her mind, captured on that damned tape. "Keep this buried, Maya, for me." "Ms. Ellis?" An older woman, Rosa, stepped forward, her face etched with the weariness of too many unpaid bills. "You said you'd shine a light on the developers squeezing us out. What's the holdup?" Maya forced a nod, her pen scratching notes as Rosa spilled details. Evictions masked as urban renewal. Bribes to City Hall that left families like hers one notice from the street. The words piled on, thickening the air, each testimony a thread pulling toward revelation. A young man, Jamal, chimed in, his voice overlapping Rosa's in the fading light. "They think we're invisible. You gonna make 'em see?" She wanted to. God, she did. But the lamp flickered again, casting erratic shadows that danced at her feet like unspoken accusations. It reminded her of the line she'd crossed in Noor's dim apartment, the promise recorded, binding as iron. Noor had trusted her with a hidden fracture in her life, a personal wound that tied into the larger scandal. Expose it all, and the community might rally. Shield it, and the story stayed half-told, nor exposed in ways no interview could mend. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. A text from Elias. "Where are you? We need to talk about the draft." The distance between them had grown since that promise, a new secret wedging into their partnership like frost in a seam. He sensed it, the way she dodged his questions about the interviews, mirroring the very mistrust she railed against in her reporting. Noor, though, no. Noor felt the support in Maya's silence, a quiet anchor in the storm. "I hear you," Maya said, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. Doubt had rooted there earlier, watching the lamp's glow waver. Now it twisted into anxiety, sharp as the cold wind. Push harder? Probe Jamal for the names Noor had shielded? Or pull back, let the shadows hold what the light demanded? The group leaned in, expectant, as the lamp sputtered once more, plunging them briefly into gray. How much shadow could one promise endure before it cracked? That night, back in her apartment, Maya hunched over her desk in the dim glow of her apartment, the city hum muffled beyond the window. Her phone lay flat, screen dark but alive, with the weight of what it held. She pressed play on the old voicemail, Noor's voice spilling out like a confession uncoiled from the shadows. "Maya, it's me. You promised, on tape, remember? This stays between us. If it gets out, I don't know if I can keep going." Noor's words trembled, raw and recorded, the kind of permanence that etched into the air like ink on skin. Maya paused it there, mid-breath, her thumb hovering. The promise. Recorded. Binding. Once spoken, words like these didn't dissolve. They lingered. A chain she couldn't snap without shattering something vital. Anxiety coiled in her chest, sharp as the flickering street lamp outside her window. Buzzing, unsteady, casting erratic shadows across the room. What if she exposed it all? The secret Noor had trusted her with, the hidden harm eating at the community's edges. Publishing could shield them, rally the voices demanding justice. But Noor, the trust in her eyes during that interview, now reduced to this digital ghost. And Elias. God, Elias. He'd been pulling away these past weeks, his questions about her late nights unanswered, the distance between them widening like a fault line. He sensed it, the secret she carried alone, mirroring the very isolation she was fighting to expose in others. If she broke this, who'd be left standing? Noor, broken by betrayal? Elias, turning from the woman who demanded honesty but hoarded her own? She replayed the message, letting Noor's plea loop in her mind. The words pressed in, compressing the hours until her deadline, turning the abstract dilemma into a ticking pulse. Truth wasn't just facts on a page. It was this. Empathy threading through the cracks, holding back the flood to protect what fragile bonds remained. Silence wasn't cowardice. It was a deliberate shield, heavy but chosen. Her breath steadied, the knot in her gut easing into something firmer. Resolve. She wouldn't betray Noor, not fully. There had to be a way to honor the vow while still arming the community against the dark. But how? The question hung, unanswered, as the voicemail ended in static. The following day, the detective's office smelled of stale coffee and printer ink, the fluorescent hum overhead casting harsh shadows on the cluttered desk. Maya sat rigid in the vinyl chair, her fingers drumming a silent rhythm on her knee. Detective Aria Klein leaned forward, her badge glinting like a challenge, eyes sharp as she slid a subpoena across the scarred wood. "Maya, this isn't a game. That neighborhood's unraveling, gang whispers turning to shouts. Kids caught in the crossfire. Your notes, your recordings. Hand them over. Silence like yours. It gets people killed. Maya's pulse quickened, anxiety coiling tight in her chest. She glanced at her bag, where her tablet lay zipped away. Screen locked with a passcode that felt like a vault now. The device held everything. Interviews under the flickering street lamp, raw voices pleading for cover, and that one voicemail. Noor's voice, trembling, binding Maya to a promise etched in digital permanence. "Keep this off the record," Noor had said, her words captured unwittingly, a confession of hidden abuse that could unravel the whole web if exposed. But Klein was right. Withholding it might doom others. "I can't just—" Maya started, voice steady but laced with the first cracks of doubt. Her belief in truth as an unyielding blade clashed against the softer edge of empathy she'd only begun to grasp. Absolute disclosure? It had been her creed. Now, Noor's trust hung like a weight, pulling her toward concealment. Klein's gaze hardened, external pressure mounting like a storm front. "Can't or won't? I've got leads pointing to your sources. If you sit on this, and someone dies because of it—" She trailed off, letting the implication slice the air. Elias's face flashed in Maya's mind. He'd noticed her distance that morning, his quiet question unanswered as he watched her pack the tablet. "You okay?" he'd asked, sensing the police shadow looming, the trust between them fraying not just from her silence, but from this invading force. He waited, always, for her to bridge the gap. Maya's hand hovered over her bag, the locked tablet a cold anchor beneath the fabric. Unlocking it meant betrayal. Guarding it meant risk. Loyalty's sharp divide stared back. Protect one, endanger many? The question lodged in her throat, unanswered, as the room's tension thickened, forcing her toward an impossible choice. As the pressure mounted at home that evening, the apartment hummed with the low drone of city traffic outside, shadows pooling in the corners like unspoken words. Elias sat across from Maya at the kitchen table, the flickering street lamp through the window casting erratic pulses across his face. He looked worn, his producer's notebook flipped shut beside him. But his eyes, those steady, searching eyes, held hers without flinching. "You're drifting, Maya," he said, voice soft but edged with the strain of weeks unspoken. "I feel it, like there's a wall between us, and I'm the one always knocking." He reached for the shared journal, its leather cover scuffed from months of collaborative scribbles. Plot notes, interview snippets, the raw underbelly of their stories. Now, it lay between them like a bridge half-built. "Write it down, your fears, the ones you keep locked away. We started this for a reason, to be real with each other, not just on tape." Maya's pulse quickened, anxiety coiling tight in her chest. The journal stared back, innocent yet insistent, a vessel for truths she couldn't fully pour out. Noor's voice echoed in her mind, that recorded plea, fragile as a held breath, binding her to silence. If she confessed her terror of betrayal, of the secret that could unravel everything, would it spill over? Expose the promise she'd made under the weight of trust? Detective Klein's subpoena loomed like a shadow, the blocked tablet on her desk a constant reminder that time was eroding her choices. Honesty with Elias could mend them, or fracture the one vow she couldn't break. Her fingers trembled as she pulled the journal toward her. "It's not that simple," she whispered, the words catching like thorns. But his gaze didn't waver, patient, pulling her in. She opened it, the pages whispering of past vulnerabilities they'd shared, his doubts about their partnership, her early fears of the job's toll. Now, under the lamp's stutter, she pressed pen to paper. I fear the truth isn't enough, she wrote, heart hammering. That holding back hurts more than letting go. But what if opening up destroys what I've sworn to protect? She slid it across, breath shallow, the act a small unraveling. Elias read, his expression softening, a flicker of relief breaking through his worry. He nodded, adding his own line beneath. Then we face it together. No more walls. For a moment, the anxiety eased. A tentative release washing over her, like exhaling after too long underwater. The journal felt warmer in her hands, a shared pulse. But as Elias reached for her, she hesitated, the secret still coiled inside, unyielding. Could this vulnerability pull them closer without pulling everything apart? The question hung, unanswered, in the dim light. A few days later, the stakes deepened as Maya returned to Noor for a follow-up. The interview room hummed with the low buzz of the recorder, its red light a steady pulse in the dim light filtering through half-drawn blinds. Maya Ellis sat across from Noor Patel, notebook balanced on her knee, the weight of the neighborhood's untold stories pressing against her chest. Noor, usually so poised in her organizer's role, fidgeted with the hem of her scarf, her dark eyes darting to the window where the flickering street lamp outside cast erratic shadows on the wall. I've trusted you with pieces of this community, Maya, Noor said, her voice a threadbare whisper. But there's something I haven't told anyone, not even my family. She paused, breath catching like a snag in fabric. The air thickened, tension coiling between them. External in the unspoken stakes of the investigation. Internal in Maya's rigid grip on truth as her North Star. Noor leaned forward, elbows on the scarred wooden table. It's cancer. Diagnosed last month. Stage 3. The treatments, they're draining me. But I can't let it out yet. Not while we're fighting for the clinic, the housing, everything. If this leaks, it'll fracture us. People will pity me, or worse, sideline me. Her words tumbled out, raw and unfiltered, vulnerability cracking through the facade. Tears welled, but didn't fall. Instead, she gripped Maya's hand, urgent. Promise me. Keep it off the record until I'm ready. Please. Maya's pen froze mid-note. The recorder's hum now a mocking heartbeat. This confession slotted into the journal's core. The investigative ledger she'd built, page after page of harms hidden in the community's tight-knit veins. Exposing it could rally support, save lives. But honoring Noor's plea meant redacting a vital thread, risking the whole unraveling. Tension gripped her throat. She could feel the pull, the war between disclosure's light and silence's shadow. I gave you my word on trust, Maya murmured, her voice steady but her mind fracturing. Empathy surged, unbidden, a mirror to her own buried fears. But the shared journal waited at home, Elias's quiet insistence echoing. Write it down. Let me in. He'd sensed this silence growing between them, the way her entries would skirt the edges, protecting Noor at the cost of their partnership. Could she shield this pain without dooming the story Noor herself had helped build? Noor nodded, squeezing her hand once more before releasing it, the moment hanging fragile as the street lamps stutter outside. Maya switched off the recorder, the red light dying like a held breath. The question lingered, unanswered. Protection or pursuit? Which truth would break first? The weight of the new revelation followed Maya home that night. The door clicked shut behind Maya, the sound swallowed by the dim hum of their apartment. She shrugged off her coat, the weight of the day's interviews clinging like damp fog. Elias was in the kitchen, his back to her, stirring something on the stove that sent faint curls of steam rising. But his shoulders were rigid, the spoon scraping too loudly against the pot. "You're late again," he said, not turning. His voice was even, but it pulled at her, a thread unraveling. Traffic. And Noor. Interview ran long. She hung her coat, avoiding the mirror that caught her tired eyes. The air felt thick, charged with the unsaid. He set the spoon down with a deliberate clink and faced her. His eyes, usually warm with shared purpose, now held a shadow. It's not just tonight, Maya. You've been somewhere else, distant, like there's a wall between us and I'm on the wrong side. Her pulse quickened, anxiety coiling in her chest. Noor's voice echoed in her mind, the recorded plea, fragile as a held breath, about the diagnosis that could shatter everything if it spilled. She couldn't tell him, not yet. I'm just buried in this story. You know how it gets. Elias stepped closer, the space between them shrinking. I do. But this feels different. Like you're carrying something alone, protecting it. From me. His words hung, laced with hurt. He glanced at the counter where the shared journal lay open, its pages a testament to their ritual. Fears logged in tandem, vulnerabilities traded like secrets kept safe. We started that for a reason, to let each other in. But you haven't written in days. What are you afraid of, Maya? That I'll betray you? The question pierced, her throat tightening. Betrayal. The word mirrored her own fear, the promise to Noor binding her like tape over her mouth. She wanted to reach for the journal, to scribble something true without breaking her vow. But the lines blurred. Could she share the tremor in her gut without naming the source? I'm scared too, she admitted, voice low, the anxiety cracking open into something raw. Of losing what we have, of the story pulling me under. It wasn't everything, but it was a start, her hand brushing the journal's edge as if testing its weight. He nodded slowly, the tension easing just a fraction, his own fear laid bare in the quiet. Then let's face it together. Write it down, whatever it is. His gaze held hers, an invitation laced with vulnerability. She hesitated, the journal's blank page staring back like an unanswered plea. Could fear be shared without dragging others into the light? The steam from the pot dissipated, leaving only the hum of possibility, and the shadow of what she still held close. With the night's interviews beckoning, Maya stepped out again soon after. The street lamp flickered like a hesitant heartbeat, casting jittery shadows across the cracked sidewalk. Maya adjusted her stance in the dim alcove, the neighborhood's pulse thrumming low. Murmurs from open windows, the distant hum of traffic. She was back for the night shots, chasing those raw connections between stories, where vulnerability cracked open like thin ice. Her camera rig felt heavier tonight, the microphone clipped to it glowing softly under a diffused LED. A gentle halo that promised safety in confession. Start wherever it feels real, she said to Javier, the wiry mechanic leaning against his garage door. His eyes darted to the mic's warm light, then away. Not the polished version, the part that scares you. He exhaled, rubbing his knuckles. It's the waiting, you know? Every shift ends, and I'm home, but the bills stack like accusations. I hide it from my kids, smile, say it's fine. But at night, his voice trailed, the words hanging in the lamp's stutter. Maya nodded, framing him tight. The lines etching his face, the way his shoulders curled inward. No Noor here, no betrayal. Just this echo of guarded pain, mirroring the secret she cradled like a bruise. The demand clawed at her. Full honesty, every thread exposed for the story's sake. Detective Klein's subpoena burned in her pocket, a reminder that half-truths could unravel justice. But as Javier spoke, his admission weaving into the tape without spilling Noor's diagnosis, something shifted. The mic's soft glow seemed to invite not exposure, but release. a softer truth, one that honored the fracture without shattering it. Next, Lena from the corner bodega, her hands twisting a rag under the same flickering light. We hold it in, for the block. My sister's gone quiet lately, carrying something heavy. I want to ask, but... She stopped, eyes meeting Maya's. The question lingered unspoken. Could you capture this fragility? The start of sincerity in weakness, without dragging the hidden into the glare. Maya's thumb hovered over the record button, heart sinking with the lamp's pulse. The shared journal waited in her bag, Elias's latest entry a quiet plea for her own fears. She pressed on, the interviews linking like veins, vulnerability as the quiet bridge. But Noor's voicemail echoed in her mind, a binding plea. Honesty didn't have to be a flood. Maybe it could be this, a trickle, protective, alive. The night deepened, the mic's light steadying her resolve, even as the shadows pressed closer. Determined to find balance, Maya met with Detective Klein once more the next day. The dim hum of the precinct's fluorescent lights buzzed like a distant swarm as Maya slid into the booth across from Detective Arya Klein. The air smelled of stale coffee and printer ink, a far cry from the shadowed intimacy of her night interviews. Klein's eyes, sharp as a blade under the harsh glow, fixed on her. You know why we're here, Ellis? That lead you've been sitting on. It's not just a story. It's evidence. Lives hang on it. Maya's fingers tightened around her coffee cup, the steam curling like unspoken accusations. Tension coiled in her chest, a live wire from the moment she'd agreed to this meeting. Klein leaned forward, voice low and insistent. If you hold back, we're talking obstruction. Communities fracturing. Rumors are spreading faster than facts. Expose it now, and we stop the bleed. Delay, and blood's on both our hands. Words lodged in Maya's throat. She could see it all. The article drafted on her laptop. Noor's secret woven into the narrative like a thread that could unravel everything. But then, unbidden, the recorded voice echoed in her mind. Noor's voicemail from last night, tinny and trembling over the phone line. Maya, promise me. The diagnosis, it's not just my story. Keep it buried, for us. The words had been captured, permanent as ink, a binding tape she couldn't erase. Noor's voice, soft under the street lamp's flicker, pleading for the shield Maya had sworn to provide. Klein's gaze bored deeper. What's the hesitation? You chase truth like it's oxygen. Or is this personal? Maya swallowed, the choice pressing like a weight on her ribs. Hand over the file, the blocked tablet burning in her bag, and justice might roll forward, saving the neighborhood from the shadows. But betray Noor? The diagnosis wasn't leverage. It was a fracture, a hidden harm that demanded protection, not parade. Doubt seeped in, cooling the fire of her certainty. Honesty wasn't just publication. It was this. Guarding the vulnerable core while the world demanded exposure. It's not that simple, she murmured, voice steady but frayed. Some truths, they protect when they're silent. Klein's jaw tightened, the silence between them thickening. Maya pulled out her phone, thumb hovering over Noor's contact. She needed to see her, renegotiate the boundaries of trust, not break them. But as Klein slid a folder across the table, outlining the fallout of inaction, the question lingered, unanswered. Could she honor the promise without letting justice slip into the dark? In the quiet aftermath, Maya turned to the shared journal for clarity. Maya sat at the scarred wooden table in their dim kitchen, the shared journal open like an invitation she could no longer ignore. The pages whispered of Elias's neat script, his fears inked in blue, raw admissions of feelings shut out. Her own entries had been sparse, guarded strokes avoiding the core. Noor's diagnosis, the taped promise that bound her like chain. Outside, the street lamp flickered, casting jittery shadows through the blinds, mirroring the pulse in her throat. She picked up the pen, hand hovering, reveal enough decline to keep justice alive. Context on the community's hidden fractures, the institutional neglect fueling Noor's silence, without naming the illness that could shatter her. Betray Noor? Never. The words formed deliberate, measured. Decline. Broader patterns of cover-up, anonymized voices. Protect the source, honor the tape. It was a tightrope plan, her report reshaped around the void. The door creaked. Elias entered, coffee mug in hand, eyes weary but sharp. "You're writing," he said, not a question, sliding into the chair opposite. His gaze flicked to the page, then her face. Closed off these weeks, a wall he'd battered against. Maya exhaled, the tightness in her chest loosening like a breath held too long. "I need to tell you something. Not everything. There's a promise I can't break. But I'm scared. Scared that shielding her means shutting you out." The words tumbled, vulnerable under the soft overhead light, the journal a bridge between them. Elias leaned forward, fingers brushing hers. "I've been scared too. That we're drifting, that your truths are mine no more." He turned the journal toward him, reading her plan aloud, voice steadying. It works? You balance it?" She nodded, the openness flooding in, warm, tentative. "It has to. For her, for us." They sat there, the lamp's hum the only sound, as he added his line. "We'll navigate it together." Trust reignited, fragile yet real. But as Maya closed the journal, the question lingered in the air, unanswered. Could she truly bare her soul to him without cracking Noor's fragile shield?